Today, we're about to explore the most terrifying big cat attacks ever recorded, from a lone trekker in the mountains of Nepal to a quiet farmer in Argentina defending his livestock at dawn. It was February 2nd, 2015, in the Annapurna region of Nepal. The morning light had just begun to rise over the snow-covered ridges, cutting through mist that rolled like slow smoke across the valleys. The storm that had passed 2 days earlier left the air thin and unnervingly still. Arun Tamang, 29, was a schoolteacher from the lower Mustang Valley who took short solo treks whenever weather allowed. The mountains were familiar to him, not as a climber, but as a villager's son who grew up hearing wind through prayer flags. He was modest, known for fixing lanterns during festivals and sharing extra blankets with slower trekkers. When his school closed for a week in February due to heavy snow, he planned a simple one-day hike to check his family's old grazing shelter before spring. That winter was severe. Repeated storms drove herds from high pastures early, and snow lay deep across the foothills. Goat carcasses marked avalanche paths, and villagers whispered about leopards roaming near homes, lean, hungry animals following livestock corridors. Shepherds pulled their flocks closer to villages, leaving the upper trails silent. When Arun set out at first light, the danger felt remote. He wore a blue jacket, carried a small pack, and expected to return by dusk. The slopes below Manang were a mosaic of frost and rock. Each step broke through thin crusts of ice as avalanches rumbled faintly in the distance. Overhead, a few crows circled a narrow gully, the only sign of movement in a still white valley. Leopards are solitary predators, averaging around 4 feet in body length and weighing up to 140 pounds. Built for stealth, they move with padded silence, their spotted coats blending easily into forest and scrub. They prefer deer and smaller mammals, but will scavenge or hunt livestock when natural prey is scarce. In famine winters, older or injured leopards can take greater risks, venturing near villages or following isolated travelers along wooded paths. Unlike lions, they don't roar before attacking. Their strikes are fast, quiet, and close range. 3 days before Arun's trek, shepherds reported finding fresh paw prints near a steep col known for wind drifts. The tracks were deep, spread far apart, a sign of a heavy animal moving fast. One porter mentioned hearing strange coughing calls after dusk, the kind leopards use to locate mates or warn rivals. Locals advised travelers to move in pairs and avoid dawn routes when snow crust is loud enough to betray steps. Arun had heard the talk, but dismissed it. His route was short, the trail familiar, and weather forecasts promised a brief window of calm before the next front moved in. By mid-morning, the light had shifted, flattening the shadows. The snow softened further, forcing slower progress. Near a narrow ridge, Arun's footprints veered off the main trail toward a rock outcrop overlooking a frozen gully, likely to rest or take shelter from gusting wind. That was where searchers later found evidence of his pack and a small indentation in the snow. One porter, climbing the next day, reported hearing a low, rasping growl near that same ledge and spotting a flash of blue before it vanished under drifting powder. The sequence that followed was pieced together from tracks, claw marks, and drag lines visible beneath thin crust. Evidence showed the leopard had approached from above, using the slope's natural cover. The first strike likely knocked Arun face down. Compact depressions suggested the cat's forepaws landed on his shoulders. A small scatter of gear, a glove, a flashlight, a torn pack strap, showed brief resistance. In predator analysis, the attack matched a hunger-driven ambush rather than territorial defense. The animal bit and held, attempting to subdue prey heavier than usual. Struggle signs extended no more than 10 feet downslope before the drag marks began, leading to a shallow depression partially covered by snow. The leopard's caching behavior was precise. It had pulled snow and loose debris over the body, intending to return later. The scrape was shallow, only a few inches deep, with distinct paw imprints along the rim. The attacker's tracks continued uphill before disappearing over a cornice. Searchers found no blood trail beyond the site, meaning the leopard likely left once disturbed by noise from the search party. One shepherd who helped the volunteers said he saw movement in the upper rocks at dawn, a silhouette crouched, tail flicking once before slipping out of view. When rescuers reached the site on the second day, shifting snow had already hidden much of it. Arun's blue jacket was found partially frozen against the slope, one sleeve extended outward as if reaching. His camera, found several feet away, held a final photo showing fog rolling through the valley. No animal visible, only the blurred horizon. Rangers documented the evidence and confirmed a leopard based on track width and caching pattern. News of the death stayed local. Authorities issued brief warnings, but withheld details to avoid concern among trekkers. A small funeral was held, and his students sent prayer flags to the ridge. Conservationists cited hunger, not aggression, as the cause. By late February, villagers lit night fires and carried whistles. When spring came, meltwater erased the prints, and the ridge fell silent again. It was September 8, 2015, and the ancient forests of India's Ranthambore National Park echoed with the sounds of the monsoon season as Dr. Kavitha Nair made her way through the dense jungle undergrowth. The 34-year-old wildlife biologist from Delhi had been conducting research on tiger behavior patterns for her doctoral thesis, spending 8 months studying the same territory with proper forest department escorts and safety protocols. Dr. Nair had earned her master's degree in wildlife biology before specializing in big cat behavior research that had taken her to reserves across India and Southeast Asia. Her passion for tiger conservation had developed during childhood visits to national parks with her father, a Forest Service officer who had instilled in her a deep respect for India's apex predators. Her current research project focused on documenting how female tigers with cubs adapted their hunting and territorial behaviors during the monsoon season. She carried state-of-the-art GPS tracking equipment and camera traps that allowed her to monitor tiger movements without direct human interference. Dr. Nair had been tracking a female tiger with 2 young cubs as part of a comprehensive study on maternal behavior in wild tigers, accompanied by her assigned armed forest department escort, as required by her research permits. Her research was groundbreaking work that would contribute significantly to tiger conservation efforts across India. The monsoon rains had created challenging conditions throughout the park, with swollen streams and muddy terrain making navigation difficult. While following a game trail through particularly dense vegetation, Dr. Nair momentarily lost visual contact with her escort when the path split around a large fallen tree. The separation lasted only minutes, but in that brief window, she unknowingly entered a critical zone where a tigress had hidden her cubs. Bengal tigers are among the world's most powerful predators, with adult females weighing up to 300 pounds and possessing incredible strength, speed, and hunting ability. Female tigers with cubs are particularly dangerous, as their maternal instincts drive them to eliminate any perceived threat to their offspring with extreme aggression. Dr. Nair had been focused on navigating the muddy terrain when she failed to notice the tiger cubs resting in a small depression just off the path. When she took a step closer to examine what she thought was interesting vegetation, she unknowingly positioned herself between the mother tiger and her young, triggering the most dangerous situation possible with a wild tiger. The female tiger detected Dr. Nair's presence immediately and interpreted her position as a direct threat to her cubs. The 280-pound tigress moved through the jungle with deadly silence, using her natural camouflage and hunting instincts to position position herself for an attack that would eliminate the perceived danger to her offspring. Dr. Nair realized her mistake when she heard the tiger cubs calling to their mother, but it was already too late. The tigress launched her attack from less than 10 feet away, her powerful legs propelling her massive body through the air with explosive force. Dr. Nair had no time to react, as 280 pounds of enraged mother tiger struck her with devastating impact. The tigress's claws raked across Dr. Nair's back and shoulders, opening deep gashes that severed muscles and arteries, while her powerful jaws delivered a powerful bite to the upper shoulder and neck region. The tiger's incredible jaw strength crushed bones and vital structures with mechanical precision as Dr. Nair's body was driven to the ground. The tigress maintained her grip for several seconds, ensuring the threat was neutralized before dragging Dr. Nair's body several meters away from her cub's location. Having eliminated what she perceived as a danger to her offspring, the protective mother then disengaged and moved her cubs to a safer location deeper in the forest. Dr. Nair's escort found her body within 20 minutes after losing visual contact, following her GPS signal and the sounds of the brief but violent encounter. Despite immediate radio calls for emergency medical assistance, Dr. Nair had succumbed to fatal injuries from the tigress's decisive attack. The investigation revealed that the momentary separation from her escort, while brief and unintentional, had created the dangerous situation that led to her death. Forest Department officials emphasized that tiger attacks in protected reserves remain extremely rare, with this incident representing a tragic convergence of circumstances during maternal protection behavior. The tragedy led to comprehensive policy reforms within the park. New regulations mandated that all research activities be suspended during severe weather conditions, required researchers to carry satellite communication devices in addition to standard radios, and established protocols to prevent even momentary separation between researchers and their armed escorts. It was July 8, 2015, deep within the Amazon rainforest of Brazil, where a swollen tributary cut through dense jungle canopy. 3 days of relentless rainfall had transformed the waterway into a raging torrent, carrying debris downstream at dangerous speeds. The research station sat 650 feet from the riverbank, connected to study sites by narrow trails disappearing into impenetrable green walls. Willa Jensen, a 29-year-old marine biologist, had arrived 18 months earlier, documenting fish migration patterns during the rainy season. Her obsessive dedication to data collection earned academic recognition, but also concern from colleagues who worried about her tendency to prioritize research over safety. 2 teammates, a botanist and a field technician, had urged her to postpone the river crossing until water levels receded. Recent entries in the research log documented fresh jaguar tracks and scat near water sources, evidence of increased big cat activity, as flooding concentrated wildlife along remaining dry corridors. The morning presented Willa with a critical decision. Her spawning survey points lay across the swollen tributary, accessible only by crossing a fallen cecropia tree that stretched precariously over churning water. The massive trunk had fallen during recent storms and now served as the only bridge to her research site. Dawn conditions brought low visibility, while wildlife concentrated along river margins to drink and hunt. Jaguars represent the apex predator of South American rainforests, ranking as the 3rd largest cat species globally. These muscular hunters can weigh up to 250 pounds and measure 6 feet from nose to tail. Unlike other big cats that suffocate prey with throat bites, jaguars possess the strongest bite force of any feline, capable of crushing turtle shells and caiman skulls. Their preferred killing method involves a devastating bite directly through the skull or spine. Jaguars are exceptional swimmers, equally comfortable hunting on land or in water, making them uniquely dangerous near river systems. Their spotted coats provide perfect camouflage in dappled jungle light. Willa began her crossing at first light, stepping carefully onto the slippery bark surface. Her waterproof research pack, weighing 40 pounds, shifted her center of gravity as she navigated the treacherous bridge. Halfway across, floating debris struck the trunk, causing it to roll slightly and forcing her to crouch for stability. The motion disturbed the water below, catching the attention of a jaguar that had been moving along the riverbank within nearby cover. The jaguar moved through the riverside vegetation, using the heavy brush and rising water to stay concealed as it closed the distance from the bank. As she regained her footing and prepared to continue across, the Jaguar positioned itself directly beneath the crossing point. The attack began when the Jaguar surged from the riverbank, rising through the shallow water beside the fallen trunk. Its forelimbs locked onto her legs with sudden force, pulling her off the slick surface and into the torrent below. Razor-sharp claws sank deep into Willa's legs and lower torso as the Jaguar forced her into the churning tributary. The 40-pound research pack immediately dragged her toward the bottom as the animal maintained its grip. Jaguars are strong swimmers, and the rising water gave the animal an advantage as it pulled Willa toward the muddy riverbank where it could maintain firmer footing. Her attempts to reach the surface were thwarted by the Jaguar's weight and the pack's downward pull. Once in shallow water near the bank, the Jaguar repositioned for its signature killing bite. The Jaguar secured a crushing bite high on her back near the spine, consistent with the species' typical killing method. Later examination showed fractured ribs, a punctured lung, and extensive internal bleeding caused by the force of the bite. Forensic findings indicated severe internal trauma and rapid hemorrhaging, which would have caused loss of consciousness within moments. The Jaguar maintained its crushing grip until all movement ceased, then dragged her body onto the muddy bank and into dense vegetation. Her teammates initiated search procedures when she failed to return by evening. Heavy rain and rising water levels delayed the effort, and the flooded terrain limited how far they could safely travel in the dark. At first light, station staff coordinated with local authorities, organizing a grid search along both sides of the tributary. Over the next 3 days, teams worked through dense vegetation and unstable riverbanks until they located her partially consumed remains beneath a cluster of fallen logs, where the Jaguar had dragged and cached the body in accordance with typical feeding behavior. Brazilian wildlife authorities investigated the incident by interviewing staff and reviewing field logs, noting gaps in communication and safety planning during flood conditions. The station was required to strengthen its protocols, adding a mandatory buddy system, scheduled check-ins, and limits on solo fieldwork in areas with confirmed Jaguar activity. It was April 6, 2016, in the lower foothills near Shimla, Himachal Pradesh, India. The air was cool and dry, the kind that carried sound clearly across the slopes. Patches of sunlight broke through moving clouds, casting shifting patterns over the rocky ground. It was an ordinary grazing day for the shepherds, but the silence in the forest beyond felt heavier than usual. Ramesh Lal, 51, walked slowly behind his small herd of sheep, his weathered wooden staff in hand. He had been shepherding since he was a boy, following the same seasonal routes that his father had once taken. His livelihood depended on keeping the herd safe from straying into ravines or wandering too close to the forest. That afternoon, he had chosen a grazing spot near the edge of a pine stand, close enough for shade, but open enough to watch the animals spread out across the slope. In the weeks prior, the Forest Department had issued a general warning, advising herders to stay in open areas and work in pairs. Ramesh acknowledged the advice, but decided to work alone. The day was clear, and he believed that a leopard would stay hidden deeper in the forest unless provoked or starving. The open ridge was dotted with shrubs and boulders, sheep bells clinking in the quiet. Beyond, dense pines stood over a carpet of needles, resin scenting the air as clouds briefly dimmed the slope. What Ramesh likely didn't fully appreciate was the apex predator that ruled these mountains. Leopards in the Himalayan foothills are opportunistic predators, with adult males typically weighing 110 to 165 pounds. Their muscular build and flexible spine allow them to leap more than 20 feet in a single bound. These predators possess incredible stealth capabilities, their spotted coats providing perfect camouflage among the dappled shadows of rocky terrain. Known for dragging kills into cover to feed, they can overpower animals many times their own weight, targeting the neck or spine to incapacitate quickly. Their bite force can exceed 400 pounds per square inch, enough to crush vertebrae and sever major blood vessels. Ramesh had heard occasional rustles from the pine edge, but assumed it was his sheep moving through brush. At one point, he noticed a cluster of birds erupt from the tree line, but the movement was too brief to draw his attention for long. A small shadow shifted on the slope above him, hidden in the uneven light. Predatory eyes had been watching his every movement. Then the atmosphere changed. The sheep bells had gone quiet. The constant bleating of his flock seemed to pause. The attack came in a single, explosive motion. The leopard launched from a concealed boulder just above Ramesh's position, landing with its full weight on his back. The impact drove him face first into the rocky soil, knocking the staff from his grip. In the same instant, claws dug deep into his lower spine and hips with surgical precision. The pain was blinding, and his legs went numb almost immediately. The claws had severed nerve pathways in his lower back. The leopard's jaws clamped onto his side, teeth piercing through muscle and into the ribcage with devastating force. Its hind legs raked across his thighs in rapid, tearing motions, shredding the thick wool of his trousers and cutting into flesh. The attack was brutal and efficient, demonstrating millions of years of evolutionary refinement designed to kill prey quickly and effectively. The air filled with the sharp scent of blood, mixing with the musky odor of the predator's fur. Ramesh's shouts carried across the slope, raw and urgent, startling nearby shepherds tending their own flocks. The leopard's powerful jaws worked with mechanical precision, each bite calculated to cause maximum damage while maintaining its grip on the struggling victim. Two men dropped their tools and ran toward the sound, picking up rocks and thick sticks as they moved. They could see the leopard's spotted coat flashing in the sunlight as it shifted position over Ramesh. The animal turned its head toward them, ears flattened, its tail lashing the air in irritation. One of the men hurled a rock, striking the leopard in the shoulder. The predator snarled but didn't immediately retreat, its predatory instincts warring with its survival instincts. The second man rushed in, swinging his stick at the animal's flank. After several more strikes and shouts, the leopard backed away, melting into the shadows of the pines with the fluid grace that made these predators nearly invisible in their natural habitat. The shepherds quickly assessed Ramesh's condition. One stayed with him, while the other sprinted down the slope toward a roadside tea stall, known to have a landline phone. The call to the local forest department went through within minutes, and it took just over an hour for a jeep carrying forest rangers and a paramedic to reach the site. Ramesh lay motionless, face pale and breathing shallowly. The back of his shirt was shredded, soaked dark with blood. Deep puncture wounds marked his side, and 3 parallel gashes crossed each thigh. The rescuers lifted him carefully, avoiding movement in his lower body, and carried him down the slope toward the road. Hospital scans showed severe spinal damage and deep lacerations needing surgery. Ramesh survived, but the leopard's attack had severed nerves, ensuring he would never walk again. Months of rehabilitation followed, focused on adapting to life in a wheelchair. The scars on his thighs and torso healed into thick, raised lines, but the loss of mobility ended his shepherding career forever. Local authorities increased leopard monitoring in the region, setting up camera traps and patrolling grazing areas. The slope where the attack happened remained unused for grazing, the boulder above it still marked with faint scratch lines from the leopard's claws. It was March 21, 2017, in Thane district, Maharashtra. The city was still waking when mist hung over half-built apartment towers, and stray dogs rummaged through scattered trash. Beyond the main road, a low elementary school sat between a drainage canal and a narrow strip of woodland that had once been part of a larger forest. Sunita Patel was 42, a school janitor and caretaker. She lived 3 blocks away in a rented one-room flat with her sister's family. Known for her reliability, she arrived every morning before sunrise to sweep the courtyard and unlock the classrooms. The school served the nearby workers' children, small, brightly painted rooms surrounded by a concrete wall only 5 feet high. Sunita liked the quiet before the day began, often talking with the gate guard as she worked. She had been with the school for 9 years, proud that it stayed clean and orderly despite the crumbling drains and wild brush along its rear boundary. The neighborhood where she worked was a typical edge zone of Mumbai's urban sprawl, partly concrete, partly forest. A drainage channel ran behind the school, connecting to a series of culverts and overgrown storm pipes that led toward the Sanjay Gandhi National Park boundary. In the past decade, leopards had begun appearing more frequently in these in-between spaces, drawn by feral dogs and easy scavenging near garbage sites. It was not unusual for residents to hear growls at night or find paw prints in mud after heavy rain. Leopards are India's most adaptable big cats, capable of surviving in dense forest or crowded suburb. An adult male can weigh up to 150 pounds and leap more than 20 feet in a single bound. They hunt primarily at night, using cover and silence to ambush prey, then vanish before dawn. In cities like Mumbai and Thane, they feed mostly on stray dogs and pigs, occasionally venturing into residential zones when food is scarce. They are wary of humans, but unpredictable when startled or cornered. A bright light, sudden movement, or noise can turn avoidance into confusion and aggression. The week before the incident, residents reported seeing a leopard on CCTV near a roadside tea stall less than half a mile from the school. It had been following the drainage line, a convenient corridor for wild animals moving through developed areas. Municipal crews were aware of one open grate awaiting repair behind the school's wall, but work had stalled. The headmistress discussed delaying early classes, but decided against it after assurances from local ward officers that the park rangers were monitoring the situation. On the morning of March 21st, the street outside the school was quiet, except for 2 vendors setting up their carts and a few parents walking children to the gate. At 6:12 a.m., security footage later reviewed by authorities showed movement in the drain behind the compound. A leopard emerged, crouched low, then slipped through the open channel into the schoolyard. The guard on duty, Rajesh Mehta, had just unlocked the outer gate when he noticed the animal near the courtyard edge. His shouted warning startled both the leopard and Sunita, who was sweeping the far end of the yard near a row of planters. Witnesses said the animal froze for several seconds, its ears twitching toward the noise before lunging in Sunita's direction. The distance between them was less than 30 feet. The leopard cleared it in a single rush, colliding with her before she could step back. Mehta grabbed a plastic chair and swung it, shouting for help. The commotion drew attention from a vegetable vendor and 2 parents just outside the gate. One of them began recording on a phone as the leopard turned erratically, pinning Sunita to the ground. The animal's movements appeared confused. It bit, released, then crouched again as the group threw stones and shouted. In under a minute, it retreated toward the drain, tail low, and disappeared the same way it came. When the noise subsided, the guard and bystanders ran to where Sunita had fallen. The broom was still clutched in her hand, broken near the middle. She had no time to call out. Police arrived within 15 minutes, followed by Forest Department officers. The footage from the security camera captured the entire event. A flicker of motion, a blur of spotted fur, and a few indistinct seconds before the frame shook as the guard ran to help. Authorities traced paw prints through the drain and confirmed they matched a male leopard known to range along the park's edge. By mid-afternoon, tranquilizer teams set traps near the canal, but caught nothing. 2 nights later, The same leopard was captured after triggering a cage baited with a stray dog. It was identified, sedated, and relocated to a wildlife reserve outside Nashik. Officials described it as healthy but undernourished. News coverage remained brief, a few short articles citing human-wildlife overlap and warnings to residents near drain corridors. The school closed for 2 days, then reopened with temporary guards and new drainage covers welded into place. Sunita's sister collected her last month's wages quietly at the municipal office. It was November 14, 2018, in the remote wilderness of Kalahari Transfrontier Park, Botswana, where endless stretches of red sand and scattered acacia trees created natural corridors for Africa's apex predators. The dry season had reached its harshest point, shrinking waterholes and drawing wildlife into narrow bands of nighttime activity. Bo Foster had chosen one of the park's designated but unfenced camping areas for a private family expedition, confident in his ability to manage any risks the bush presented. Bo, a 31-year-old adventure guide with more than a decade of experience, had led countless safari groups through southern Africa. His record was spotless, his clients praised him, and he was accustomed to navigating dangerous terrain with calm precision. That confidence, however, had grown into a quiet sense of invulnerability. His wife and 2 young children, joining him on such a remote trip for the first time, trusted his judgment completely. Earlier that afternoon, park staff conducted a routine briefing emphasizing strict rules: remain inside tents and vehicles after dark, avoid loud noises, and keep food sealed. Bo knew the rules by heart and had delivered the same warnings to tourists many times before, but familiarity had dulled their urgency. The Foster family set up their small camp in a clearing bordered by knee-high scrub. Their tent stood at the center, with their vehicle parked to one side. By dusk, the temperature dropped sharply, and the sounds of the Kalahari night took over. Distant roars, soft grunts, and the rhythmic calls of nocturnal birds. The landscape felt vast and alive, but deceptively calm. African lions are the only truly social big cats, forming family groups known as prides. Females, or lionesses, do most of the hunting and are capable of operating cooperatively when targeting herd animals. Yet most human encounters involve only 1 or 2 individuals acting independently. Lionesses can weigh nearly 300 to 400 pounds and rely on short, explosive bursts of speed and powerful forelimbs to subdue prey. Their hunting peaks at night when darkness offers reliable cover. Around midnight, Bo woke to the faint sound of branches cracking somewhere beyond the tent. At first, he dismissed it as shifting wind or grazing antelope, but another heavier footstep followed. Then a slow brushing sound moved around the perimeter of the clearing. The wildlife of the Kalahari was always active after dark, but this pattern felt deliberate. A small group of 3 lionesses had been trailing migrating prey along a dry riverbed. Their route brought them near the campsite, where lingering scents, food, fire, and human presence caught their attention. The lionesses paused in the scrub, assessing. 2 remained deeper in the vegetation, while 1 drifted closer to investigate the movement she sensed from the tent. Inside, Bo listened. His instincts as a guide told him to stay put, but years of handling dangerous encounters gave him a misplaced confidence that he could read lion behavior well enough to scare it off. Not wanting to alarm his sleeping family, he unzipped the tent quietly and stepped outside into near total darkness, carrying only a small flashlight. The beam illuminated a lioness crouched roughly 20 feet away. She froze, eyes reflecting the narrow cone of light. The other 2 lionesses stayed farther back, unseen, but later confirmed by tracks left in the sand. The moment Bo stepped forward, the lioness reacted. She closed the distance in a short burst, striking with enough force to knock him off balance. Evidence later showed deep lacerations to his upper body from claws and crushing trauma at points of contact. The attack was fast, typical of a lioness responding to perceived threats at close range. Bo attempted to push himself upright, but the lioness maintained pressure, overpowering him within seconds. The injuries revealed a combination of clawing and biting consistent with a single lioness acting alone. The other 2 lionesses stayed along the vegetation line and did not engage physically. Tracks confirmed they maintained distance throughout the brief struggle. Nearby campers later reported hearing distress sounds, but were unsure of what occurred until morning. Inside the tent, Bo's family remained frozen in place, afraid to make noise or open the tent flap with lions still in the area. When the lioness released and moved away, she returned to the cover of the scrub, leaving the clearing silent again. Rangers responded at dawn after receiving radio reports from other campers who heard calls for help but could not safely approach during the night. They found Bo near the edge of the clearing, and tracks indicated the lioness had retreated shortly after the confrontation. The medical examiner documented extensive trauma consistent with a lion attack and rapid blood loss. The scene confirmed that only one lioness had made physical contact, while the other two remained on the perimeter. Following the incident, park staff reviewed nighttime safety procedures. They added mandatory radio check-ins for campers at unfenced sites and increased evening patrols during the dry season when wildlife movement peaks. The case became part of updated safari safety training, underscoring that even seasoned professionals can misjudge the unpredictability of nocturnal predators. It was April 16, 2017, and the rugged wilderness of South Africa's Limpopo province stretched endlessly under the scorching African sun. The vast bushveld landscape, dotted with acacia trees and rocky outcroppings, provided perfect habitat for some of Africa's most dangerous predators. Xander and Colt Castellano, ages 19 and 21, had traveled from their family's Texas ranch for what was supposed to be the hunting trip of a lifetime, a graduation gift from their wealthy rancher father. The Castellano brothers had grown up hunting white-tailed deer and wild hogs on their family's 10,000-acre ranch outside Dallas, but this African safari represented their first encounter with a truly dangerous game. Their father had spared no expense, hiring one of South Africa's most experienced professional hunters as their guide and booking them into an exclusive hunting concession known for its large lion population. Both young men were skilled marksmen who had been hunting since childhood, but they were also known troublemakers who had a history of creating chaos wherever they went, often ignoring authority figures and acting impulsively. Their professional hunter had spent the morning tracking a large coalition of male lions that had been terrorizing local cattle ranches, making them prime targets for trophy hunters willing to pay premium prices. The guide had located the lions resting in thick bush during the heat of the day, positioning the brothers for what should have been a straightforward shot at close range. African lions are apex predators that can weigh up to 420 pounds and possess incredible strength, speed, and endurance. Male lions are particularly dangerous when wounded, as their territorial instincts and pain combine to create an extremely aggressive and unpredictable adversary. Lions can reach speeds of 35 miles per hour in short bursts and possess powerful jaws capable of delivering a bite force exceeding 650 pounds per square inch. Xander, the younger brother, fired first, his shot striking the massive male lion in the shoulder rather than the vital chest area their guide had indicated. The wounded lion roared in pain and fury before disappearing into the dense bush, leaving a clear blood trail that experienced hunters knew indicated a dangerous situation. As their professional hunter assessed the shot placement and began coordinating the follow-up procedure, a sudden equipment malfunction caused his radio to fail just as he was calling for backup. The rocky terrain created a natural barrier that temporarily separated him from the brothers as he moved to higher ground, seeking radio contact with base camp. True to their troublemaking nature, Xander and Colt decided to pursue the wounded lion immediately during this brief separation, believing their hunting experience back home had prepared them for tracking dangerous game. They grabbed their rifles and followed the blood trail into the thick vegetation, ignoring everything their guide had taught them about wounded, dangerous game protocols. The wounded 400-pound lion had taken refuge in a dense thicket of wait-a-bit thorns, where his golden coat provided perfect camouflage among the dappled shadows. Xander entered the thicket first, his rifle raised and ready, but the dense vegetation made it impossible to see more than a few feet in any direction. The lion waited until both brothers were deep in the thorns before launching his attack. The lion's initial charge struck Xander with devastating force, his massive paws driving the young man to the ground while his claws raked across Xander's chest and arms. The impact knocked Xander's rifle from his hand hands as the lion's jaws clamped down on his neck and head, his 4-inch canine teeth compressing his airway and causing catastrophic trauma. Xander lost consciousness within seconds as the lion's powerful bite compressed his airway and severed critical blood vessels, though the fatal damage would take several minutes to complete its work. The wounded lion remained focused on Xander, his predatory instincts driving him to maintain his grip on his victim. When Colt moved closer and began shouting at the lion while raising his rifle, the big cat's attention shifted to this new threat. The lion released Xander and immediately turned toward Colt, his wounded state making him even more aggressive and unpredictable. The lion's claws tore through Colt's safari shirt and deep into his chest and shoulders, while his powerful jaws sought purchase on the young man's neck. Colt managed to fire one shot that struck the lion in the leg, causing the wounded predator to retreat deeper into the bush after inflicting severe injuries on both brothers. The brothers' father and their professional guide reached the thicket 45 minutes later, after the guide had restored radio contact and organized a search when the brothers failed to respond to calls. They found Xander unconscious and dying from massive blood loss and trauma, while Colt remained barely conscious with severe wounds across his chest and shoulders. The nearest hospital was over 200 miles away, and arranging helicopter evacuation from the remote concession required nearly 3 hours of coordination between multiple agencies. During the long flight to Johannesburg, Xander succumbed to his injuries from blood loss and trauma. Colt survived the initial surgery, but died from multi-organ failure following overwhelming infection and trauma 2 days later. The investigation revealed that both brothers had violated fundamental hunting safety protocols by pursuing wounded, dangerous game without their guide. The tragedy devastated their father, who never recovered from losing both sons in a single day. The incident led the hunting concession to implement stricter safety protocols, requiring clients to remain within sight of their professional guides at all times, with immediate hunt termination for any safety violation. It was June 3rd, 2014, along a remote stretch of riverbank in Brazil's Pantanel region. Pale dawn light turned the river mist to silver threads. Humid air carried the scent of wet plants and fish, broken only by capybara grunts and the soft slap of water. A stillness that felt like the forest holding its breath. Rafael Torres, 29, led the narrow trail, machete in hand. A skilled fisherman who knew the Pantanel's currents and fish patterns, his stubborn confidence often led him to ignore risks and navigate without guides. This trip, like many before, was to check and reset the fishing nets he'd left in the shallows overnight. His cousin, Marcos, had come along to help haul the morning's catch back to camp. In the weeks before, fishermen had reported jaguar sightings along this section of the river. A few claimed the animal had been approaching camps at night, its low cough audible from inside tents. Rafael dismissed the warnings, convinced caimans were the real threat, not hidden cats. He carried the machete more from habit than caution. The trail wound through dense gallery forest, roots twisting into the river. Damp leaves softened the ground, humid air clinging to the skin. Sunlight cut through the canopy in sharp patches, the thick undergrowth able to hide a full-grown animal just feet away. What Rafael likely didn't fully appreciate was the apex predator that ruled these waters. Jaguars in the Pantanel are the largest in the species, with adult males reaching over 250 to 320 pounds and measuring more than 6 feet from nose to tail. Unlike other big cats, jaguars often hunt by ambush from the water's edge, striking with short, explosive bursts before dragging their prey into cover or underwater. They are strong swimmers, capable of moving silently through flooded channels. That morning, Marcos spotted fresh tracks in the mud near the trailhead, broad, rounded prints without claw marks, but Rafael brushed them off. Near the river bend, Marcos stopped to free tangled line, while Rafael moved ahead into narrowing reeds. The birds fell silent, and even the usual rustle in the undergrowth ceased. The rustle came first, quick, heavy, and too close to be wind. Before Raphael could turn, the jaguar exploded from the cover of grass, its forepaws hitting his back and driving him face first into the muddy bank. The weight was crushing, forcing the air from his lungs. Claws raked across his ribs, tearing through shirt and skin with devastating precision. The jaguar's jaws clamped onto the base of his neck, teeth sinking deep into flesh and muscle. Raphael's body jolted with the force, the pain radiating into his shoulders like fire. He felt the hot breath of the animal and the rough scrape of its tongue between bites. The predator's bite force, capable of crushing bone, sent shockwaves through his entire body. Marcos's shout carried over the sound of splashing water as he ran forward, grabbing a thick branch from the ground. The blow to the jaguar's flank made it release, but only for a heartbeat. It turned, snarling, and lunged again, this time sinking its teeth into Raphael's left shoulder. The pressure was immense, and something gave way deep inside, muscle and sinew tearing under the incredible force. Marcos struck again, harder, shouting and swinging until the jaguar backed off, eyes locked on them with predatory focus before slipping into the water. The sound of its movement faded quickly into the current, leaving only the echo of violence and the metallic smell of blood mixing with river mud. Raphael lay on his side, coughing, mud and blood mixing beneath him. His neck and shoulder were slick with puncture wounds, each one a testament to the jaguar's killing efficiency. 3 deep claw lacerations ran diagonally across his torso, and his thigh bled steadily from another rake of claws. Marcos hauled him upright, half carrying, half dragging him back toward camp. Every step jarred the injuries, sending flashes of pain through Raphael's arm and side. Back at camp, Marcos shouted for help to 2 fishermen preparing to set out in another canoe. One of them grabbed a mobile phone and contacted the nearest settlement's ranger station. It took about an hour and 20 minutes for assistance to arrive by motorboat, the responders bringing basic medical supplies. At camp, they stabilized Raphael enough to move him into the canoe. The trip to the settlement took over an hour, the water seeming to drag against the hull. By the time they reached the dock, Raphael's skin was pale under the morning sun, his left arm hanging limp. A small clinic provided initial care until a helicopter arrived to take him to a regional hospital. Raphael survived, but the damage was lasting. Months of recovery left him with reduced mobility in his arm and deep scars across his torso that would never fully fade. In the village, the story of the attack spread quickly. Fishermen avoided that section of river for weeks, citing it as proof that jaguars, when hungry or territorial, would target humans without hesitation. It was September 3, 2017, and the vast wilderness of Cougar National Park in South Africa stretched endlessly under the scorching afternoon sun, its golden grasslands shimmering in the heat, while acacia trees provided scattered patches of shade across the 7,500 square mile reserve. The park's remote northern section remained largely untouched by tourism, creating the perfect hunting ground for both wildlife and the desperate men who risked everything to poach the park's precious rhinos. Sifo Mthembu moved carefully through the tall grass, his weathered hands gripping a borrowed rifle as he approached the massive white rhino that would either save his family from starvation or cost him his life. At 34, Sifo was a father of 3 young children whose world had collapsed when the local platinum mine closed, leaving him and hundreds of other workers without income in one of South Africa's poorest regions. The former mine laborer had never hunted anything larger than small antelope, but mounting debts and his children's hunger had driven him to accept an offer from a poaching syndicate that promised enough money to support his family for an entire year. This was Sifo's 3rd expedition into Cougar, his previous successes having given him a dangerous sense of confidence in an environment where overconfidence could prove fatal. The poaching operation was carefully planned, with Sifo entering the park through a remote section of damaged fencing under cover of darkness. He carried minimal equipment, equipment: an old hunting rifle, a machete for removing the rhino horn, and a small backpack containing water and basic supplies. African lions are apex predators that hunt in coordinated groups called prides, with adult females doing most of the hunting while males defend territory and cubs. A typical pride consists of 4 to 6 related females, their offspring, and 1 to 3 adult males, working together to bring down prey much larger than themselves. Lions are opportunistic hunters with incredible strength, speed, and endurance, capable of taking down buffalo, giraffes, and even young elephants. Their powerful jaws can crush bone, while their razor-sharp claws can disembowel prey with a single swipe. Saifo had successfully located and killed a mature white rhino bull, using multiple close-range shots to the heart and lungs to bring down the 4,000-pound animal. The difficult work of removing the valuable horn had taken him over 2 hours in the blazing heat, leaving him exhausted and severely dehydrated. Instead of immediately leaving the area as planned, Saifo made the fatal decision to rest in the shade of a nearby marula tree, believing he could recover his strength before beginning the long trek back to his extraction point. The combination of physical exhaustion, dehydration, and the stress of the illegal operation overwhelmed Saifo's ability to stay alert. He fell into a deep sleep beside the rhino carcass, his rifle resting against the tree trunk just out of reach. The scent of blood was carried far across the savanna on shifting afternoon winds, attracting every predator in the area to investigate this unexpected bounty. A pride of 6 lions had been hunting unsuccessfully for 2 days when the scent of fresh blood reached them on the afternoon breeze. The lions discovered Saifo sleeping peacefully in the shade, completely unaware of the deadly predators that had surrounded him while he rested. The pride's hunting instincts were immediately triggered by the sight of vulnerable prey, their natural caution overridden by the opportunity for an easy kill. The attack began when the largest female launched herself at Saifo's sleeping form, her 280-pound body striking him with devastating force before he could react or fully awaken. The lioness's powerful jaws clamped down on his throat, while her claws opened deep gashes across his torso. The second female seized Saifo's left arm in her jaws, her powerful bite force crushing bones while she shook her head violently to tear flesh and muscle. The dominant male attacked Saifo's head and neck area, his massive weight pinning the poacher to the ground while his powerful jaws compressed Saifo's neck. The chaotic attack lasted less than 5 minutes, with the lion's natural hunting instincts driving them to overwhelm their human prey through sheer force and numbers. Saifo's body convulsed under the frenzied assault as multiple sets of claws raked across his legs and abdomen, causing massive blood loss. The combined assault of massive blood loss, shock, and neck compression proved fatal within minutes. Park rangers discovered the scene 3 days later during a routine anti-poaching patrol, finding Saifo's scattered remains along with the rhino carcass and his abandoned poaching equipment. The investigation revealed the sequence of events through tracks and forensic evidence, with clear signs showing Saifo had been sleeping when the attack occurred, his rifle found untouched against the tree where he had placed it. The positioning of his body and the lack of defensive wounds indicated the lions had struck before he could mount any resistance. Saifo's death sent shockwaves through the local community, serving as a grim reminder of the dangers faced by those desperate enough to enter Cougar's wilderness illegally. The incident prompted increased anti-poaching efforts and community outreach programs designed to provide alternative income sources for unemployed minors. Saifo's family received support from local charities, though they faced the stigma of his illegal activities while mourning his loss. It was August 14, 2017, in a protected reserve in southern Kenya. The night smelled of dust and diesel, a low wind moving across the scrub between acacia clumps. Headlamps from distant vehicles glowed like slow-moving fireflies along the park road. Elsewhere, the land was dark and patient. Joseph Juma was 36, a night ranger on the park's anti-poaching unit. He had spent half his life in these patrols, learning to read spoor and silence the way others read newspapers. He preferred foot patrols because they left less noise and could catch poachers who slipped past roadblocks. He supported a small extended family, a wife, 2 children, and an elderly mother. and carried their expectations with him every shift. Joseph was careful, but decisive. He often moved alone for tactical reasons, believing a lone footprint drew less suspicion than a convoy. That habit, learned from years on the beat, made his field judgments swift and sometimes thinly hedged. Fellow rangers knew him for spotting snares and freeing trapped animals. That night his sector had seen odd buffalo movements, herds veering off their normal paths, and a rise in snare recovery. Radio chatter mentioned a suspected poacher sighting near a dry riverbed and occasional lion roars that sounded closer than usual. Joseph volunteered to push a foot route through a narrow corridor where tracks and fresh dung suggested activity. His intent was to investigate and mark ambiguous signs for the motor patrol later that morning. The ground was uneven with termite mounds and soft sand, tall grass shifting under moonlight along a ridge above a dry gully. On nights like this, sound traveled oddly, a clipped bark or a distant engine carried, then died. The combination of bush, dune, and broken ground both hid and amplified movement. It was the kind of terrain where a predator could close to within 20 to 30 feet without being seen until the last moment. Lions are large, social predators. An adult male can weigh over 400 pounds and deliver crushing force with jaws and forepaws. Males in the area are known for long patrols and for investigating any disturbance near kills or recent scavenging. When a lion is guarding meat or investigating other predators, it will stand its ground and, if surprised at close range, can respond with rapid, forceful strikes intended to immobilize. Their tactics involve heavy forepaw swipes and bites to the head or neck. In low light, they rely on close contact rather than long chases. Warnings that night were thin but present. Radio traffic referenced an errant jeep spotted by a boundary post an hour earlier. A senior ranger told the shift to avoid lone investigations where buffalo or lion activity was reported. Joseph acknowledged the warning on his radio but moved up the corridor anyway, deciding that a quick visual check could resolve the uncertainty before daybreak. He carried a standard-issue radio, a flashlight, and a short baton. He did not call for backup because he judged that moving quietly would be less likely to alert poachers. That judgment matched the standard operating culture. Quick, quiet checks were common. But it reduced immediate help if things went wrong. At approximately 2 a.m., Joseph followed a fresh set of tracks into a narrow clearing. His own footprints were the last human marks for the next several yards. A colleague on vehicle patrol heard sporadic radio static, and then a single abrupt call before transmissions cut out. The vehicles moved toward the sector but were slowed by soft sand and the need to avoid making noise that could scatter suspects. A handheld thermal camera later recovered from a teammate's kit recorded distant heat signatures and a single burst of movement coinciding with the abrupt radio cutoff. When the motor patrol reached the clearing minutes later, they found scattered gear, a broken torch, and a pair of boots abandoned in the grass. What investigators reconstructed from tracks and signs was a close contact encounter. Follow-up trackers found deep claw gouges in hard-packed soil and scuff marks, indicating the lion had grappled at ground level. The pattern of bite marks on clothing and the positioning of dragged equipment suggested Joseph had been knocked to the ground, pinned, and bitten in a short, violent sequence intended to subdue. Witnesses who arrived soon after described hearing roaring and a chorus of low, angry growls in the distance. One ranger's body camera caught intermittent audio, a long, guttural roar followed by a faded scramble of sand and a distant light. The animal did not drag the victim far. The evidence indicated it guarded the immediate area, then retreated uphill when vehicle lights and human voices approached. Medical and forensic teams later noted that the wounds were consistent with a defensive encounter around a possible kill or carcass rather than an unprovoked stalking. Scattered bones and recent scavenging signs were found nearby, pointing to either a buffalo carcass or a large scavenged kill that would justify a lion holding its ground. Terrain slowed response times and complicated extraction. Soft sand and narrow tracks kept vehicles from reaching the exact point quickly. The radio cutout and timing matched a sudden close-range surprise rather than a prolonged hunt. The park classified the report and tightened patrol rules. No solo tracking, mandatory partner checks, and 5-minute radio calls. Coverage stayed minimal, focused on safety updates. Joseph's family received quiet support, and a brief memorial was held at the post. The site was later marked with brighter posts and new patrol protocols, a reminder to future rangers of choices made in silence. It was November 23, 2014, and the rugged wilderness along the border of Montana's Glacier National Park lay shrouded in early winter snow as Talon Blackfeather tracked an injured deer through the dense forest. The 28-year-old Native American ranch hand supplemented his income by working as a hunting guide during deer season, using skills passed down through generations of his family, who had lived in this harsh landscape for centuries. Talon had grown up on the Blackfeet Reservation just outside the park boundaries, learning traditional tracking methods from his grandfather, while also mastering modern hunting techniques during his years working for local ranchers. His reputation as one of the area's most skilled trackers had made him a sought-after guide among hunters visiting Montana, providing crucial supplemental income during the harsh winter months when ranch work became scarce. As an experienced tracker familiar with the area, Talon often helped local ranchers recover wounded wildlife that wandered onto their property from the adjacent wilderness. Talon had decided to track a deer that had been struck by a car on Highway 2, just outside the park boundary on private ranch land. The injured animal had managed to cross onto the ranch property where Talon worked, and the landowner had asked him to locate and dispatch it humanely to prevent suffering and potential predator attraction. His familiarity with the area and confidence in his abilities made him comfortable working alone. The blood trail led Talon deep into a remote canyon on the ranch property where few humans ventured, especially during the harsh Montana winter. The injured deer had managed to travel nearly 2 miles before finally succumbing to its injuries in a small clearing surrounded by dense timber. Talon's years of experience had taught him to remain alert for signs of predators, but his focus on the tracking task had made him less cautious than usual. Talon discovered the deer carcass in the small clearing, but he immediately realized he wasn't alone when he spotted the large male cougar feeding on the opposite side of the kill. The 150-pound cat looked up from his meal, his amber eyes fixed on Talon with the intense stare of a predator assessing a potential threat to his food source. Mountain lions, also known as cougars or pumas, are North America's largest wildcats, with adult males weighing up to 200 pounds and possessing incredible strength and agility. They are solitary hunters with excellent camouflage and the ability to leap vertically up to 15 feet and horizontally up to 40 feet. Cougars are territorial animals that will aggressively defend their kills from any perceived threat, and their powerful jaws and razor-sharp claws make them extremely dangerous when cornered or challenged. Most experienced outdoorsmen know that the proper response to a cougar encounter is to back away slowly while maintaining eye contact, making yourself appear as large as possible without making sudden movements. But Talon's frustration at losing the deer he had tracked for hours, combined with his confidence in his size advantage, led him to make a fatal decision. Instead of retreating, Talon began shouting at the cougar and throwing rocks, believing his aggressive behavior would intimidate the big cat into abandoning its kill. He had successfully scared off black bears using similar tactics, but mountain lions respond very differently to human aggression, especially when defending a fresh kill. The cougar interpreted Talon's aggressive actions as a direct challenge for possession of the deer carcass. The big cat crouched low with his ears flattened and tail twitching, maintaining his threatening posture while Talon continued his aggressive display. prey. When Talon took several steps closer, while continuing to shout and throw rocks, the cougar's defensive instincts fully activated. Talon turned momentarily to pick up a larger rock, and in that instant, the 150-pound predator struck with the silent efficiency that made cougars such deadly hunters. The big cat covered the distance in a single explosive leap, attacking from behind with devastating precision. The cougar's powerful jaws clamped down on the back of Talon's neck with crushing force, his canine teeth causing catastrophic cervical trauma leading to rapid paralysis. Talon's attempts to fight back were cut short as the cougar's bite caused immediate loss of motor function and rapid unconsciousness. The attack lasted less than a minute, with the cougar maintaining his grip until all movement ceased. The big cat's natural hunting instincts, perfected over millions of years of evolution, had eliminated the threat to his kill with lethal efficiency. Once satisfied that Talon posed no further danger, the cougar dragged the body several feet into cover and resumed feeding. Talon's body was found 3 days later by search teams after he failed to return home from his tracking expedition. The heavy snowfall and remote location had complicated search efforts, while the cougar had moved the body into dense timber where it was partially concealed. The investigation revealed clear evidence of the encounter, including cougar paw prints in the snow and the defensive feeding behavior around the deer carcass. The investigation confirmed that Talon had been working within his authorized duties on private ranch land when the encounter occurred. It was September 15, 2016, in the rugged terrain of Angeles National Forest, California. The San Gabriel Mountains stretched endlessly under the golden hour light, their peaks casting long shadows across the chaparral-covered slopes. A narrow turnout along the winding mountain road provided visitors with sweeping views of the wilderness below, where dense brush and scattered boulders created perfect hiding spots for the region's most elusive predators. Anna Fox, a 26-year-old freelance wildlife photographer, had driven to this remote overlook with 2 hiking companions to capture the last light of day for a clear wildlife photograph. Known for her ambitious approach to capturing California's wildlife, Anna had built her reputation photographing deer and coyotes across the state's national forests. Her friends, both weekend hikers in their mid-20s, preferred the safety of established trails and maintained a more cautious attitude toward wildlife encounters. They had come to the overlook primarily for the scenic sunset views. While nearby trailheads had posted warnings about recent mountain lion activity, their turnout had no signs visible. The group's excitement peaked when they spotted a large mountain lion approximately 30 yards away, moving between the chaparral and granite outcroppings below the road. The mountain lion appeared intermittently through the thick brush, providing tantalizing glimpses that had Anna reaching for her camera equipment. Her companion suggested remaining safely inside their vehicle with the windows down for photography, but the windshield's reflection and angle made clear shots nearly impossible. Mountain lions are solitary ambush predators, most active at dawn and dusk. Adult males typically weigh 110 to 150 pounds and measure about 6.5 to 7.5 feet in total length. They rely on silent movement and short, powerful bursts at close range, using a rapid leap followed by a controlling bite to the neck to quickly incapacitate their prey. As the golden light began to fade, Anna made the fateful decision to exit the passenger side of the vehicle for an unobstructed photograph. She stepped onto the narrow shoulder, raising her camera toward where the mountain lion had last been visible. The animal had moved below the road grade, using the natural drainage and dense cover to mask its approach. Within moments of Anna leaving the vehicle, movement in the brush signaled the predator closing the distance along the concealed route. Witnesses only saw the initial movement in the brush before the lion lunged upward toward the road. Her companions had stayed inside the vehicle, and from their position, they only saw sudden movement in the brush before losing sight of her behind the road's slight drop-off. Investigators later determined, from drag marks and disturbed soil, that the animal closed the final distance from a concealed position before making contact from behind. Evidence indicated the encounter ended quickly. Marks on the ground and on her clothing indicated the lion made multiple contact attempts near her upper neck during the brief struggle. Her displaced camera equipment and the clawed tears in her jacket indicated the force of the initial contact and where the lion's claws struck her. Her neck injuries showed the lion secured a controlling bite early in the attack. The exact sequence inside the brush wasn't witnessed, but the injuries indicated a sustained neck bite consistent with typical mountain lion killing behavior. Drag marks showed the lion pulled her downslope into denser vegetation afterward, following its usual pattern of moving prey to covered ground before feeding. Her companions called 911 and dispatch notified park rangers and wildlife officers. They remained inside the vehicle as instructed until responders reached the turnout, then provided witness statements before being escorted out of the area for their safety. However, the remote location and approaching darkness made immediate rescue attempts impossible. Search teams located her remains 2 days later in dense cover, roughly 70 to 100 yards downslope, where the lion had dragged and cached the body under a layer of brush and debris, consistent with typical mountain lion feeding behavior. The incident prompted increased patrols in the area and additional warning signage advising visitors about mountain lion activity. Her family was notified by authorities, and the university later coordinated procedural support for student wildlife researchers following the case review. Wildlife officers tracked the lion confirmed to be responsible and removed it from the area, following standard state protocols for human attack incidents. Park officials also updated visitor guidance, encouraging groups of 3 or more to stay together when traveling through known high-risk zones. It was February 11, 2015, on the forested edge of the Sundarbans, Bangladesh. The tide had pulled back, exposing slick mud flats between the mangroves. The air carried the sharp scent of salt water mixed with the earthy smell of rotting vegetation. Overhead, the morning sky was muted by haze, diffusing the sunlight into a pale gray wash. It was quiet, except for the soft slosh of water in the channels, the kind of silence that made every rustle in the mangroves feel closer than it was. Reena Begum, 34, stepped carefully along the edge of a mangrove root, balancing a bundle of dry wood against her hip. A widow for 6 years, she supported herself by collecting firewood and selling small fish at the village market. She was known for her determination, often venturing farther into the forest than most women in her village. With the dry season reducing wood supplies near home, she had decided to take her 12-year-old niece, Afsana, deeper into the mangroves that morning. The plan was simple: gather wood for the week and return before the tide. Tiger attacks were common here, but Reena trusted daylight, noise, and her dulled sickle to keep her safe. Dense mangroves arched over the mud, roots slick with algae. Crabs darted through brackish pools, warm, still air broken by a kingfisher's call and the splash of fish. In the tightest growth, visibility dropped to a few yards. What Reena may not have fully grasped was that these waters belonged to an apex predator. The Bengal tiger of the Sundarbans is smaller than its inland cousins, but just as deadly. Males typically weigh 300 to 400 pounds, with a top speed of 35 miles per hour in short bursts. They are powerful swimmers, capable of crossing tidal channels to stalk prey with deadly precision. Unlike other tigers, Sundarbans tigers are known to see humans as part of their prey range, a behavior influenced by the overlap between human settlements and their hunting grounds. That week, a fisherman spotted fresh tiger tracks, and another heard its rasping roar at dawn. Reena listened but carried on, certain it was far away. As they moved deeper into the forest, she noticed long drag marks in the mud, possibly from a crocodile hauling itself into the water, but dismissed them. By mid-morning, their bundles were nearly full when the forest fell silent. A branch snapped ahead, sharp and deliberate. Reena saw only shadows and kept walking, unaware that a predator was watching. The attack came without warning. A flash of orange and black blurred through the mangroves, followed by the deep thud of impact as the tiger's weight hit Reena from behind. She dropped her bundle, the sticks scattering into the mud. The animal's claws raked down her back, tearing through her thin cotton blouse and opening deep parallel wounds with surgical precision. She stumbled forward, trying to twist away, but the tiger's jaws clamped onto her upper back, teeth piercing muscle and sinew. The force drove her to her knees, the predator's incredible bite force crushing tissue and bone. The attack was brutal and efficient, a demonstration of millions of years of evolutionary refinement designed to kill large prey quickly. Afsana screamed, the sound carrying across the water channels like a siren of terror. The tiger shifted its grip, dragging Rina sideways toward thicker cover with the methodical efficiency of a predator that had performed this ritual countless times. Each pull was punctuated by the wet sound of tearing fabric and the thump of her body against roots. Rina kicked and pushed against the mud, but her movements slowed as the predator's weight bore down. Her left arm went limp, the shoulder joint wrenched under the tiger's devastating bite. The tiger's powerful jaws worked with mechanical precision, designed to drag prey to secluded feeding areas where it could consume its kill without interference. Every movement demonstrated the evolutionary perfection that made these predators so deadly in their natural habitat. Afsana turned and ran toward the main trail, her cries drawing the attention of two nearby fishermen. They arrived within minutes, armed with long bamboo poles. Shouting and striking the poles against roots, they advanced, the noise startling the tiger enough to release its hold. It backed into the mangroves, ears flattened, before melting into the shadows with the fluid grace that made these predators nearly invisible in their environment. The fishermen carried Rena back toward the water's edge. One of them pulled out an old mobile phone and called a ranger station in a nearby village. It took about an hour for a small motorboat carrying rangers and a health worker to arrive, navigating through the winding tidal channels to reach them. Rena remained conscious but weak, her blouse soaked through with blood. The tiger's claws had left 3 deep parallel gashes across her back, each one a testament to the predator's killing efficiency. She was placed on a makeshift stretcher, ferried by boat to the dock, and then loaded onto a motorcycle that took her to the nearest clinic. From there, she was transferred to a larger hospital in Khulna. Rena survived the attack, but the damage was permanent. 3 deep scars marked her back, and she lost full strength in her left arm due to nerve injury caused by the tiger's crushing bite. She never returned to the deeper mangrove areas, relying instead on help from relatives to gather wood. The site of the attack became another unmarked place in the Sundarbans, where locals would point and say simply, "A tiger came here." It was February 3rd, 2013, and the treacherous mangrove swamps of Bangladesh's Sundarbans stretched endlessly under the oppressive humidity of the Bay of Bengal as Nazir Hussain navigated his small boat through the maze of tidal channels that separated this remote wilderness from civilization. The 36-year-old fisherman had joined a small group of illegal tiger hunters after climate change and overfishing had made his traditional livelihood impossible, leaving him desperate to support his large family. Nazir and 2 other local men had turned to poaching after being recruited by middlemen who promised substantial payments for tiger parts on the black market. None of the 3 had experienced hunting dangerous game, but the desperate economic situation in their coastal village had driven them to risk everything in the world's largest mangrove forest, home to one of the most dangerous populations of Bengal tigers on Earth. Armed with old rifles and crude traps made from materials scavenged from their fishing equipment, the group represented the desperation that drove local people to hunt endangered species for survival. The Sundarbans tigers were known for their adaptability to the unique mangrove environment, but they generally avoided human contact whenever possible. These tigers typically attacked humans only under unusual circumstances, such as injury, old age, territorial defense, or when natural prey became scarce. The dense mangrove ecosystem and frequent human intrusions created situations where such encounters were more likely than in other tiger habitats. Bengal tigers are among the world's most powerful predators, with adult males in the Sundarbans weighing between 320 and 360 pounds and possessing incredible strength, speed, and hunting ability. The tigers of this region have developed unique adaptations for hunting in the mangrove environment, including the ability to swim long distances and an unusual tolerance for salt water that allows them to move freely throughout the tidal ecosystem. Nazir and his companions had set up their crude trap system using a goat as bait, positioning themselves in makeshift blinds constructed from mangrove branches and fishing nets. Their plan was simple: wait for a tiger to approach the bait, then kill it with coordinated gunfire before it could escape into the dense swamp. But their inexperience with both tigers and firearms would prove fatal in an environment where mistakes meant death. When a massive male tiger approached the bait site, the group's nerves overcame their judgment. Nazir fired first, but his shot struck the tiger in the hindquarters rather than a vital area. The wounded 350-pound predator roared in pain and fury before disappearing into the mangrove thicket, while the panicked poachers scattered in different directions during their chaotic escape attempt. Nazir became separated from his companions in the maze of identical-looking channels, his unfamiliarity with this particular section of the Sundarbans working against him as he tried to navigate back to their boat. The wounded tiger, rather than pursuing the fleeing hunters, had taken refuge near the bait site, where his injury and pain made him increasingly defensive and aggressive. 2 days later, Nazir's desperation to retrieve their expensive equipment and the valuable goat bait led him to return to the trap site alone. His family's mounting debts and the prospect of losing their home drove him to take this dangerous risk despite his companions' warnings. His companions had refused to go back, but Nazir's family's dire financial situation drove him to risk the dangerous return journey through the mangrove channels. The wounded tiger had remained in the area, his injury preventing him from hunting effectively and making him increasingly territorial around the location where he had been attacked. When Nazir approached the bait site, the big cat's defensive territorial response near the site of injury identified the returning human as the source of his pain and injury. The tiger's attack came as a defensive ambush when Nazir moved through the narrow channel near the trap site. The 350-pound predator launched himself from the concealment of the mangrove roots, his massive body striking Nazir with the full force of a wounded animal defending his territory. The tiger's jaws clamped down on Nazir's neck and head with devastating, crushing power, his natural killing technique designed to end threats quickly and efficiently. The big cat's assault lasted only seconds, his defensive instincts neutralizing the perceived threat before he retreated deeper into the mangrove thicket. Forest guards found Nazir's remains 3 days later during a routine patrol, his body bearing the devastating injuries inflicted by the wounded tiger's defensive attack. The investigation revealed the crude trapping equipment and illegal rifle that had led to his death, highlighting the desperation that drove local people to risk their lives hunting endangered tigers. Nazir's death underscored the complex relationship between poverty, conservation, and human-wildlife conflict in one of the world's most dangerous ecosystems. His family's grief was compounded by the knowledge that his illegal activities had contributed to the decline of an already endangered species, while his surviving companions abandoned poaching after witnessing the deadly consequences of their desperate venture. It was January 18, 2018, in the snow-covered Cascade Mountains of Washington state, where 3 feet of fresh powder and sub-zero temperatures had transformed the landscape into a frozen wasteland. The harsh winter had driven most wildlife to lower elevations, creating desperate competition for remaining food sources. Cleomatis had ventured into this unforgiving environment as part of an advanced winter survival training course. Cleomatis, a 28-year-old outdoor survival instructor, had built her reputation completing the most challenging wilderness exercises that others abandoned. Her competitive nature and former military background drove her to excel where others failed. She was participating in a week-long winter certification program, culminating in a solo 48-hour challenge, requiring participants to build a shelter and find food using only basic tools. The course leader remained at base camp, monitoring conditions and maintaining radio contact. During the briefing, she had mentioned increased cougar reports along lower elevation drainages, as severe winter had forced these predators to expand hunting territories. Cleo had been tracking rabbit trails through deep snow for hours, following intricate paths small mammals carved through the forest. The temperature had dropped to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, and she had been without food for 36 hours. Her plan involved setting wire snares at strategic locations along active rabbit runs. Cougars are North America's most adaptable big cats, surviving in diverse environments from rainforests to snow-covered mountains. These solitary hunters typically weigh between 80 and 200 pounds. Winter conditions create extreme stress as primary prey becomes scarce and competition intensifies. Desperate cougars take greater risks and hunt more aggressively, sometimes stalking prey for hours. Their strategy relies on stealth and patience, using natural cover before delivering devastating ambush attacks from behind, targeting the neck with suffocating bites. As Cleo knelt beside a fallen log, examining fresh rabbit droppings, a 110-pound female cougar was moving along the same trail system, gradually closing the distance as their paths converged. Tracks later indicated the cougar had been traveling through that drainage for several days, likely struggling to secure prey in the harsh winter conditions. Using thick forest cover and the uneven terrain, the animal stayed concealed while moving closer to Cleo's position. The dense pine forest provided excellent concealment, with snow-laden branches creating natural blinds that masked the cougar's approach. As Cleo focused on positioning her wire snare, the cougar closed to 30 feet, moving silently through deep snow behind thick tree trunks. The attack came without warning. The cougar emerged suddenly from behind a snow-covered pine and closed the short distance in a quick burst, landing on Cleo's upper back with enough force to knock her forward into the snow. The impact drove Cleo face first into deep, powdery snow, while the cougar's claws immediately sank through heavy winter clothing into the layers beneath. The impact knocked wind from Cleo's lungs and drove her face deep into loose snow, creating a life-threatening situation as powder filled her nose and mouth. Its claws tore through multiple layers of winter clothing, causing deep injuries along her upper back and shoulders. Unlike typical cougar attacks that rely on a precise neck bite, the cougar's weakened condition and winter stress made the encounter chaotic, resulting in multiple injuries as it tried to maintain its grip through her heavy winter layers. Cleo's defense attempts were hampered by her face-down position in deep snow and the cougar's weight pressing on her back. Each time she tried lifting her head to breathe, loose powder filled her airways, while the struggle caused additional injuries as the cat attempted to reposition and hold its grip in the deep snow. The combination of severe trauma from the attack, restricted breathing from being pinned face down in deep snow, and rapidly dropping body temperature caused her condition to deteriorate quickly. She lost consciousness within moments due to the injuries and restricted breathing, and she did not recover. When Cleo failed her scheduled radio check-ins, search teams deployed despite worsening weather conditions. Heavy snowfall slowed progress, and deep drifts limited visibility, forcing teams to move cautiously along drainage routes and known animal paths. After several days of searching, trackers followed cougar prints through a series of tree wells and located her remains partially covered by branches and snow, consistent with typical caching behavior. The incident prompted a comprehensive review of winter survival protocols, resulting in GPS tracking requirements and frequent check-ins during solo exercises. Cleo's family established a foundation promoting enhanced wilderness safety measures. It was October 9th, 2018, outside Ashland, Oregon. The morning was still, the air faintly metallic from weeks of wildfire residue that clung to the ridge above town. Sunlight cut through thin smoke haze as Melissa Crane stepped into her backyard to collect laundry, a normal chore that began like any other. Melissa Crane was 34, a stay-at-home mother of 4. She had lived in that modest, pale green house for 6 years, part of a quiet cul-de-sac where kids played basketball in driveways, and everyone knew who baked the best banana bread. Her husband, David, worked part-time at a warehouse. They budgeted carefully but kept weekends free for family picnics near Emigrant Lake. Melissa was the type to wave to passing cars, to bring soup when someone was sick, After wildfires swept through the nearby ridge that summer, she'd started hanging laundry outside again, convinced it would help air out the smoky smell still trapped in clothes. In early October, the forest behind their home looked half burned, half reborn. Charred trunks rose from a slope of brown needles, but deer had already returned, grazing near the edge of development. That same change had drawn something else. A large male mountain lion, displaced and starving, had been sighted by 2 residents walking dogs at dawn. County Animal Control received the reports but couldn't respond quickly. Resources were tied up handling livestock losses elsewhere. Melissa had read the posts on the neighborhood page about a thin cat seen near the ridge, but brushed it off. They lived in Oregon. It wasn't unusual to see wildlife, she reasoned. Mountain lions can reach 8 feet in length and weigh over 120 pounds. They hunt alone, preferring ambush from cover, and normally avoid humans entirely. But when prey grows scarce, they move closer to settlements, following deer corridors or creeks that cut through suburban growth. Biologists later noted this male showed signs of advanced tooth wear and malnutrition, factors that increase risk-taking behavior. Once a predator starts seeking easy prey, it crosses an invisible threshold, the difference between cautious survival and desperation. 3 days before the attack, a neighbor found the half-eaten carcass of a deer less than 100 yards from Melissa's fence. Another heard guttural calls echoing through the ridge at dawn. At 10:45 a.m. on October 9th, Melissa's youngest, 6-year-old Chloe, was making a peanut butter sandwich when she saw movement by the laundry line. The sheets lifted once, twice, like someone walking behind them. A neighbor across the street, home on sick leave, recalled hearing a faint clatter, clothespins dropping to the ground. At 11:07 a.m., the first scream cut through the still air. The neighbor, Thomas Beck, said it came in 3 bursts, short, strained, then abruptly silenced. When he ran outside, he saw a blur of movement near the fence, light-colored fabric, then a shadow shifting through the laundry. Melissa had stepped between her child and the direction of the noise, instinctively blocking the doorway. The lion lunged through a weak panel in the fence, claws catching on the wood as it forced through. The attack unfolded within a space no larger than a small patio. Beck saw the struggle, but couldn't cross the street fast enough. Melissa's husband, returning early from work, heard shouting before he even turned onto their block. He jumped from his truck with a shovel, swinging toward the animal as it pinned Melissa near the base of a maple tree. Witnesses described the lion's movements as erratic, biting, retreating, circling again. Melissa's screams were sharp but fading. The sound of the metal shovel striking the fence carried down the street. Another neighbor banged a broom on her railing, yelling to scare it off. For a moment, the lion backed away, tail low, panting. Then, driven by either hunger or confusion, it lunged again. The final moments were fast and silent. David Crane later told investigators he remembered the animal's eyes catching sunlight, the color of amber glass. When he struck again, the shovel handle broke in 2. When deputies arrived, the cat had already vanished into the ridge. Melissa lay unresponsive beside her overturned basket, a white sheet half buried in ash. Her daughter had locked herself inside. Tracks and drag marks led toward a drainage ditch before fading. Rangers found the underweight lion days later, euthanized it, and confirmed starvation. Coverage stayed minimal. It was June 8, 2016, and the vast wetlands of Brazil's Pantanel stretched endlessly under the oppressive humidity of the rainy season, its flooded grasslands and dense gallery forests providing perfect habitat for the jaguars that Eduardo Silva hunted illegally to survive. The 29-year-old ranch hand moved cautiously through the knee-deep water, his weathered machete gleaming in the filtered sunlight, as he checked the snares he had set 3 days earlier near a known jaguar territory. Eduardo had grown up on cattle ranches throughout the Pantanel, his intimate knowledge of the wetlands making him valuable to the black market dealers who purchased Jaguar pelts for wealthy collectors in Asia and North America. The collapse of cattle prices and his gambling debts had forced Eduardo into increasingly dangerous activities, with jaguar hunting representing his last hope for financial salvation. He had successfully killed 2 jaguars over the past year, but his crude trapping methods and limited understanding of big cat behavior had put him on a collision course with disaster. The Pantanel is the world's largest tropical wetland, covering over 70,000 square miles across Brazil, Bolivia, and Paraguay. Eduardo had set his snares along well-used game trails near water sources, using steel cables and primitive trigger mechanisms that he had learned from other poachers. Jaguars are the 3rd largest big cats in the world and the apex predators of South America, with adult males weighing up to 250 pounds and possessing the strongest bite force of any big cat. These solitary hunters are excellent swimmers and climbers, perfectly adapted for life in the Pantanel's diverse habitats. When trapped or cornered, jaguars become extremely dangerous, their powerful muscles and razor-sharp claws making them capable of killing animals much larger than themselves. Eduardo approached his trap line with growing excitement, hoping that the recent rains had driven jaguars to seek higher ground where his snares waited. The first 2 traps were empty, but the third showed clear signs of struggle, with broken vegetation and deep gouges in the muddy ground, indicating that something large had been caught. Eduardo followed the trail of destruction to a dense thicket where he discovered a massive male jaguar, still alive but severely injured from 3 days of struggling against the steel cable that had tightened around his rear leg. The 200-pound jaguar was in a state of exhausted rage, his golden coat matted with blood and mud, while his amber eyes burned with predatory fury. The steel snare had cut deeply into his leg, causing severe tissue damage and infection that had weakened him considerably. 3 days of dehydration and blood loss had reduced the big cat to a shadow of his former strength, but Eduardo's approach would trigger a final, adrenaline-driven burst of violence that desperation and survival instincts could still unleash. The trapped jaguar had been using his powerful jaws and claws to work at the snare cable, gradually weakening the attachment point where it connected to a sturdy tree trunk. Eduardo's approach triggered the cat's final desperate effort to escape, his massive muscles straining against the damaged cable until it finally snapped under the pressure. The sudden freedom caught Eduardo completely off guard as 200 pounds of enraged predator launched itself directly at him in a final, adrenaline-fueled assault. The jaguar's attack was swift and devastating, his powerful paws striking Eduardo's chest and shoulders while razor-sharp claws raked across his torso. Eduardo's machete was knocked from his hands as he was driven backward into the muddy water, the jaguar's weight pinning him beneath the surface, while powerful jaws clamped down on his throat. The big cat's 4-inch canine teeth punctured through vital structures in Eduardo's neck, severing major arteries while his bite force crushed the windpipe. Eduardo's body thrashed desperately in the shallow water as the jaguar maintained his grip, the predator's natural hunting instincts taking over despite his own injuries. The big cat's powerful hindquarters drove his claws deep into Eduardo's abdomen, disemboweling the poacher while his jaws worked to crush the bones in his neck. Eduardo's body was discovered a week later by cattle ranchers who had been searching for missing livestock in the area, finding his remains partially submerged in the muddy water, along with his broken snare equipment. The investigation revealed the sequence of events through tracks and forensic evidence, providing clear proof of Eduardo's illegal activities and the circumstances of his death. The incident prompted increased anti-poaching patrols throughout the Pantanel and enhanced penalties for wildlife trafficking. Eduardo's death sent shockwaves through the local ranching community, serving as a stark reminder of the dangers faced by those who chose to hunt jaguars illegally. His family struggled with both grief and the stigma of his criminal activities, while conservation groups used his death to highlight the desperate poverty that drove men to risk their lives hunting endangered species. It was October 14th, 2013, along a remote hiking trail in the Bitterroot Range of western Montana. The sky was clear and crisp, the thin autumn air cold but warmed by the sun. Gold and rust leaves carpeted the slopes, crunching underfoot. With no wind, only the creak of shifting branches broke the stillness, carrying every sound farther than usual. A perfect day for a solo hike. Joshua David, 38, moved steadily along the incline, the straps of his day pack creaking with each step. A long-time outdoorsman, he was known among friends for his meticulous planning and physical endurance. He had spent decades hiking and hunting in Montana's backcountry, favoring remote trails far from the reach of cell service. His pack held water, a GPS, a knife, and a small first aid kit, but no firearm. Mark believed daylight hikes made cougar encounters unlikely. Hiking alone was intentional. Solitude was why he came. After checking the weather and telling his brother his route, he parked at the unmarked trailhead before sunrise. The trail climbed through conifer forest and open meadows toward a ridge for lunch. Pine scent mixed with the dry tang of needles, sunlight cutting through to catch dust from his boots. In shaded spots, frost-edged fallen leaves and distant woodpeckers echoed through the trees. What Joshua may not have realized was that these mountains were the domain of the cougar, also called the mountain lion, the largest wildcat in North America. Adult male cougars can exceed 150 pounds. Their long, muscular bodies are built for silent pursuit and explosive power. Masters of ambush, they can trail prey for minutes or even hours before striking, usually targeting the neck to crush the windpipe or sever the spinal cord with precision. Late in the morning, Joshua crossed a narrow trail between a drop-off and thick brush. Pausing to adjust his pack, he heard a faint shift in the brush above, saw nothing but a darting squirrel, and kept walking. Then the atmosphere changed. The birds had gone silent. The constant rustle of small animals in the undergrowth seemed to pause, as if the forest itself sensed the presence of a predator. The cougar had been trailing him for several minutes, its body low to the ground, moving with deliberate precision. Predatory eyes had been tracking his every movement, calculating the perfect moment to strike. When Mark stepped into the next open section, the animal dropped from a low rock ledge behind him with explosive force. The impact drove him forward, the force of roughly 115 to 220 pounds, slamming into his back with devastating power. His knees buckled, and he fell hard onto the dirt and leaves. The breath knocked from his lungs. The cougar's forepaws locked around his shoulders, claws cutting through jacket and shirt to dig into muscle with surgical precision. Its jaws closed on the side of his neck, teeth puncturing deeply into flesh and arteries. Joshua's arms flailed, reaching for his knife, but the predator shifted, pressing him into the ground with its full weight. The forest muffled his struggle as the cougar's skill as a predator became terrifyingly clear. The attack was methodical and brutal. The cougar's hind claws raked along his back, each pull widening the fabric and flesh beneath with devastating efficiency. Its jaws released only to bite again, this time closer to the base of the skull, targeting the spinal cord. Joshua's movements slowed within moments as the predator's crushing bite force severed vital connections. His legs kicked weakly, then stilled entirely as the cougar maintained its grip, breathing heavily through flared nostrils. Two hikers approaching from farther down the trail heard a single sharp cry before they rounded a bend and froze. They could see the cougar hunched over a motionless form, tail twitching with predatory satisfaction. One shouted, throwing a rock in its direction. The cougar lifted its head, ears back, muzzle dark with blood, and after a long pause, slipped into the trees, vanishing into silence with the fluid grace that made these predators nearly invisible. The hikers reached Joshua within seconds, but there was no response. His body lay still, the forest around them returning to its deceptive tranquility. One of them used a satellite phone to contact Ravalli County Search and Rescue. It took about an hour and 15 minutes for the first team to reach their location, traveling on foot from the nearest access point due to the rugged terrain. When rescuers arrived, Mark's pack was shredded, his GPS cracked in the dirt, and his knife still sheathed. Blood pooled beneath his head and shoulders, soaking the leaves. Authorities followed cougar tracks circling the area, along with signs that it had been shadowing the trail for some time. Wildlife officers tracked the animal for nearly 2 miles before losing it in rocky terrain. Traps were set in the area, but the cougar was never confirmed to have been captured. Joshua's body was airlifted out and returned to his family in Missoula. The trail where the attack occurred was temporarily closed, and warning signs about cougar activity were posted at nearby access points. For weeks afterward, few hikers ventured into that section of the Bitterroot Range, the memory of that silent stretch of trail now tied to the morning when Solitude turned fatal. These stories prove why big cats are among the most formidable predators, silent, powerful, and unforgiving. It was March 22, 2017, at a private big cat sanctuary in East Texas. The 50-acre facility housed dozens of rescued tigers and lions behind multiple security systems. That evening, a severe thunderstorm brought torrential rain and lightning strikes that would test every safety protocol the sanctuary had carefully developed over years of operation. Jude Walker, a 34-year-old night security guard, had maintained an impeccable safety record during his 3 years at the facility. A former military police officer, Jude applied methodical discipline to his civilian work that had earned him respect from colleagues and management alike. His insomnia made night shifts preferable, and he took pride in never missing scheduled rounds or safety checks. The sanctuary typically maintained a 3-person night crew, but 2 keepers had called in sick with flu, leaving only Jude and an on-call keeper monitoring backup generators as the storm intensified. Earlier communications reported tripped breakers and gate controllers requiring frequent reboots due to power surges affecting the entire electrical grid. The sanctuary housed Sasha, a massive male Siberian tiger rescued from a defunct circus operation. The animal had lived at the facility for 5 years, adapting well to structured routines and daily feeding schedules. However, severe weather made the big cats restless, and Sasha paced anxiously as thunder rolled across the Texas countryside. Siberian tigers are the largest living cat subspecies, with males reaching 10 feet long and weighing 500 to 580 pounds. These apex predators possess incredible strength, capable of dragging prey twice their weight over considerable distances. Their retractable claws and powerful canine teeth make them formidable hunters. Unlike other big cats that kill with throat bites, tigers employ brutal approaches, using massive paws to deliver devastating blows before inflicting multiple bite wounds. Their hunting instincts remain razor-sharp in captivity, triggered by sudden movements or perceived territorial threats. At 2 a.m., Jude began his logged perimeter inspection despite worsening conditions. High winds had brought down tree limbs, and power failures disabled security systems throughout the compound. Approaching the tiger enclosures, his flashlight revealed damage to the outer mesh fencing where an oak branch had bent the chain link material. Focused on assessing structural integrity, Jude knelt beside the fence with his back toward the enclosure area. The electronic lock securing Sasha's primary gate had suffered a critical failure during the storm. Post-incident inspection found the latch misaligned from storm-related damage, combined with an electrical failure in the locking mechanism, creating a small gap the tiger was able to push through. The agitated tiger's weight against the compromised gate caused the damaged latch to give way completely, allowing the predator to move from his inner enclosure into the buffer zone between barriers. What happened next can only be reconstructed from the physical evidence discovered the following morning. The scene revealed that Jude had been attacked from behind while examining fence damage. Forensic analysis of the site showed drag marks in the mud leading from the outer fence toward the enclosure, indicating the attack began at the fence line. The pattern of injuries told a devastating story. Deep parallel claw marks across Jude's shoulders and back suggested the initial strike came from behind. Severe lacerations on his forearms and hands indicated defensive attempts to protect himself. The most catastrophic wounds were concentrated on his neck and torso, consistent with the tiger's typical attack pattern. The medical examiner's report, completed days later, documented the full extent of the trauma. Multiple vertebrae had been crushed, major blood vessels severed, and vital organs damaged by the crushing force of the attack. The combination of massive blood loss, spinal trauma, and organ damage would have been rapidly fatal. Storm noise masked any sounds of the struggle, and Jude's body remained undiscovered until dawn, when the day shift arrived to find the horrific scene. The on-call keeper, working in a distant generator building, heard nothing over the thunder and equipment noise. The incident triggered a comprehensive investigation by state wildlife authorities and federal agencies overseeing exotic animal facilities. Sanctuary officials implemented immediate security upgrades and revised protocols requiring dual-gate lock confirmation during severe weather conditions. Jude's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit, which was settled out of court, while the facility faced temporary closure pending mandatory safety improvements. The incident prompted the facility to implement additional storm-related safety measures, and regional inspectors later recommended similar upgrades for other sanctuaries in the area. It was July 12, 2016, and the vast wetlands of Brazil's Pantanel stretched endlessly under the scorching South American sun as Enzo Vasquez navigated his small boat through the maze of channels and lagoons that made this region one of the world's most biodiverse ecosystems. The 41-year-old freelance nature photographer from São Paulo was working on a magazine assignment about jaguar conservation, desperately needing this project to succeed after months of financial struggle. Enzo had been in the field for 2 weeks, camping in remote areas and following jaguar tracks through the gallery forests and wetlands that provided perfect habitat for South America's largest cat. His small following among wildlife photography enthusiasts wasn't enough to provide steady income, and this assignment represented his best opportunity to establish himself among the world's top wildlife photographers. The Pantanal's dry season had created ideal conditions for jaguar photography, as the big cats were forced to concentrate around permanent water sources and established hunting territories. Enzo had been following reports from local guides about a large male jaguar that had been seen regularly along a particular stretch of river, hunting caimans and capybaras in the shallow water. Jaguars are the third largest cats in the world and the apex predators of South America, with adult males weighing up to 250 pounds and possessing incredibly powerful jaws capable of crushing bone and skull. Unlike other large cats, jaguars are excellent swimmers and often hunt in water, using their devastating bite force to kill caimans and other aquatic prey with crushing precision. Enzo finally spotted the magnificent male jaguar resting on a fallen tree trunk near the riverbank, his rosette-spotted coat providing perfect camouflage among the dappled shadows of the gallery forest. The photographer began capturing images from his boat, but the distance and angle weren't providing the dramatic close-up shots he needed for his magazine assignment. Against his better judgment, Enzo decided to approach the jaguar on foot through the shallow water at the river's edge. He had photographed leopards and lions in Africa using similar techniques, but he fatally misjudged the situation. Rather than providing an escape route, the water actually gave the jaguar a significant advantage. This was the big cat's preferred hunting environment, where his swimming ability and aquatic hunting skills made him even more dangerous. The 220-pound jaguar had been aware of Enzo's presence since his arrival, but had tolerated the distant observation from the boat. However, when the photographer entered the water and began approaching on foot, the big cat's territorial instincts identified this as a direct challenge that required immediate response. Jaguars are ambush predators that prefer to attack from concealment, and the male used the riverbank vegetation to position himself for a surprise assault. Enzo was focused entirely on his camera settings and composition, unaware that he was being stalked by one of South America's most efficient killers. The jaguar's attack came without warning, as the big cat launched himself from the riverbank, striking Enzo from behind as the photographer waded through the knee-deep water. Enzo had no time to react, as 220 pounds of muscle and fury drove him face-first into the muddy river bottom. The jaguar's powerful jaws clamped down on Enzo's skull with a crushing crushing bite to the head, causing catastrophic brain injury. The jaguar's devastating bite, evolved specifically for crushing turtle shells and caiman skulls, caused rapid incapacitation with the efficiency that had made his species the apex predator of South America's waterways. Within moments, the jaguar began dragging Enzo's body toward the dense vegetation along the riverbank, his natural instincts driving him to cache his kill in a secure location away from potential scavengers. The big cat's powerful build allowed him to move his victim through the water and into the gallery forest with surprising ease. Enzo's boat was found drifting empty downstream the following day by local fishermen who reported the discovery to authorities. Search teams located Enzo's remains 2 days later, cached beneath fallen logs and vegetation approximately 50 meters from the attack site, consistent with typical jaguar feeding behavior. His damaged camera equipment was found nearby, partially submerged in the muddy riverbank. Local guides later confirmed the area was an active jaguar hunting corridor, known for territorial male jaguars that aggressively defended their prime fishing spots. The investigation revealed that Enzo had violated basic safety protocols for photographing dangerous wildlife by approaching a territorial jaguar in its preferred hunting environment on foot. The incident led to enhanced safety briefings for photographers working in jaguar territory and stricter guidelines for approaching big cats in their natural habitat. It was September 7th, 2015, in Misiones Province, Argentina. The air before dawn was cool and heavy, carrying the damp scent of grass and the faint buzz of insects. The forest edge behind the Ruiz family farm was still dark, but the goat pens near the clearing were alive with restless movement. Esteban Ruiz was 47, a smallholder rancher who had lived his whole life along the same dirt road outside Campo Ramon. He kept goats, a few pigs, and hens, modest stock that supported his wife and 2 teenage sons. Locals respected him for his endurance and his even temper. Unlike some of his neighbors, Esteban rarely used firearms. He believed in scaring predators off rather than killing them, saying that the forest had a right to exist alongside the farms. His shotgun, a rusted single barrel inherited from his father, was more deterrent than weapon. That year was hard. Drought pushed deer and tapirs deeper into the forest, and jaguar sightings rose near the river. 3 weeks earlier, 2 goats were found dead by the drainage ditch. Esteban reinforced the pen with wire and patrolled at night, ignoring his wife's pleas to wait for daylight. He feared hesitation invited risk. The land around his property sloped toward a stream lined with palm and bamboo. Beyond that, the Atlantic forest began, dense, humid, and full of layered sound. At night, mist gathered over the grass and clung to fence posts. The soil was soft, and by morning the prints of possums, armadillos, and dogs marked its surface. The sounds of nocturnal animals carried easily. A sudden shriek, a rustle, then quiet. From the farmhouse, the goat pen sat no more than 50 yards away, enclosed by mesh fencing and a simple wooden gate. Jaguars are apex predators of South America, capable of dragging prey twice their weight. Adult males can reach 7 feet from nose to tail and weigh over 200 pounds. Their bite is among the strongest of any big cat, powerful enough to pierce a skull or crush bone. Normally, jaguars avoid humans, preferring to hunt capybaras, deer, or livestock when natural prey is scarce. But as agricultural clearing expands, the edges of their range blur into farmland, and their patterns change. In such border zones, a startled jaguar may attack defensively rather than flee. For several days before the attack, Esteban's neighbors had spoken of strange prints near the creek and goats refusing to graze near the trees. A forestry officer passing through the village mentioned seeing camera trap footage of a jaguar moving north from a nearby reserve, likely displaced by logging activity. Esteban listened, but continued his nightly rounds. On September 6th, the night before, he told his wife he'd heard something heavier than a dog circling the back fence. She urged him to call the municipal guard, but he shrugged it off, saying it was just passing through. Shortly before dawn, around 5:10 a.m., a neighbor's child awake on the upper floor saw movement in Esteban's yard. A dark form slipping through the lower fence line towards the goat enclosure. Inside the pen, the animals began bleating in confusion. Esteban stepped outside with his flashlight and his old shotgun in hand, wearing only his work shirt and boots. The beam of light caught two green reflections at the far corner of the pen. A low, guttural growl carried through the dark. He advanced slowly, calling to the goats, swinging the light toward the shape. The jaguar had already seized one animal, its body jerking in the shadows. When Esteban shouted and raised his arm, the beam struck the cat's eyes full on. The animal turned, ears flat, and crouched low. Startled, Esteban stepped between the panicking goats and the opening in the fence, waving the flashlight to herd them through. The jaguar lunged, closing the short distance in a single bound. The impact knocked him backward into the post. Witnesses later described the sound, a sharp cry, then the wooden gate slamming against its frame. The child who'd been watching screamed for her father, who ran outside and triggered the town's emergency siren. Within minutes, several men from nearby homes arrived with sticks and tools, banging on metal pans and shouting to scare the predator. One man fired a warning shot into the air. The jaguar hesitated, tail lashing, before turning and disappearing through the same gap it entered. When the noise faded, Esteban was found near the base of the fence, his flashlight lying a few feet away, beams still faintly glowing across the grass. Several goats huddled against the far corner, unharmed but trembling. He was still breathing when neighbors reached him, but died before the local medic arrived. Deep puncture wounds on his shoulder and neck confirmed a single, powerful strike, typical of a jaguar's killing behavior. Authorities handled the case quietly. Local news gave it a few lines, noting the prints found near the stream. Camera traps later showed a lone male jaguar moving through, already gone by week's end. The community raised funds to rebuild the Rui's fence and add solar lights. Forestry officials launched a small livestock protection program. Esteban's widow received a simple plaque. After that, no one patrolled the pens alone before dawn. Thanks for watching. Want to watch more? Click on your screen now